Hi, welcome back to Call and Rick Talk Risk. How's it going, Rick?
Awesome.
Bright and sunny out there
It
behind you.
is. You can tell I'm not a professional podcaster because I probably should have lowered the volume, shouldn't I? But anyhow, it
It's
is
okay.
what it is. I'm at my university office today. So, you
You're
know,
more comfortable than I feel at the moment in my little cubicle here, hunched over.
actually, I kind of like your sterile cubicle.
Like
It feels
like that
very
art?
minimalist or something. And,
It is.
fancy art. You know, the only what art I have is I have Voodoo Rick.
Oh
But
no. Rick,
yeah,
you've never
Voodoo
showed
Rick.
this before. We should start
Oh,
every
yes.
podcast with this.
Voodoo Rick with the bow tie, the blue blazer that I'm famous for
That's awesome.
wearing, the fine Dominican product, which you probably can't see, the cup of coffee. It even has the French cuff shirts that I wear to class. So, yeah, and
That's pretty
and of
great.
course, the
Yeah.
classic hairstyle. But
Now,
yeah, so that's what I've got for art.
did they cut off some actual locks to make the hair
Uh, uh, we'll, 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 we'll never know it. It
It's not
even
real
has
voodoo
the,
if you don't.
and you can't see this, but it even has the purple socks that I always wear.
Wow. No, that is really cool. That is attention to detail there. Jeez.
Yeah, my wife commissioned it by highly regarded, award-winning artist to do it. So yeah, we have Voodoo Rec. That's my art in the office.
Nice.
Actually, I do have a print from a very famous uh, Newfoundland artist on mummers, which is a uniquely Newfoundland thing. And this is actually risk related because um, it was sent to me by two parents whose daughter did a directed readings with me, which she developed a simplified model for pricing credit derivatives, which won a major national a business school essay contest.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so she got a high five-figure scholarship, and I got a print.
Very nice.
So I do have a piece of art.
Yeah.
And also, I have a Mobius strip that my wife did, if you can see it in the window there, out of
I see a
stained
red.
glass.
I see a little bit of red.
Oh, but it's red and blue and purple. It's
Ah.
actually a Mobius strip that my wife did out of stained glass. But anyhow, we
Huh.
digress.
I don't know
People
if we.
want hard risk management, content in this podcast, Carl. Hard stuff.
I know. We can't keep the people waiting any longer, Rick. We got to get onto it. But I don't think we've digressed because what I want to talk about is having fun at work, and I think this is pretty fun. So, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if COVID and kind of hybrid work has made work a little more fun because you know, at the office, you've got a clean desk policy. Everything's got to be shiny. It never is, but it's almost like you have no
God, I didn't
personality.
get that memo about a clean
Yeah,
desk
you well,
policy.
yeah. Sorry, professors are exempt from that one. You're okay, but yeah, in most corporate offices, everything is all the same, and it feels like we've lost something because you used to have pictures of your family and your dog and a bit of personality sitting on your desk, which is what professors' offices look like. And we don't have that anymore, right? Yeah,
Talk to the
Rick.
doll. Talk to the doll.
And then of course we all went home, and the ones that didn't put blurry screens or animation or whatever weird backgrounds they want to put on, you can see into their lives a little bit, and you can see. Well, you get to point out my light fixtures and the Cuban rum poster on my wall, and I get to see your
But by
voodoo
the way,
doll.
I have to say, it's a pet peeve of mine. And again,
Yeah,
this has nothing to do with risk. Although, actually, it does. A pet peeve of mine is people that use false backgrounds. I
yeah.
understand that you haven't cleaned up. You know, I get that. Okay. And I understand that not everyone has a good place, but if you're going to work from home, you're a person.
Yeah,
Show
relax.
your
Yeah.
personality.
And what about not turning your video on at all?
Oh, that
It's that makes work very difficult, I think. I mean, and people don't really
You think
talk
it makes
about
work
it.
difficult? Try teaching with that.
Yeah,
Try having a
yeah,
conversation with a black hole or a black
yeah,
square.
yeah. No, not good. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't think people talk about it enough, but that just drains the life out of conversations and interaction and, back and forth, which you need. That's what gets our juices flowing at work. Um, so, yeah, eh, maybe we can think of some other things that make risk work more fun because risk work, um, it's not the most social activity, right? We're not programmers. We're not in a little room coding away, but we're not exactly salesmen either, right? We're
Although we
somewhere in
did
between.
discuss that risk managers should be salespeople,
Should
but
be. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree exactly. And I've talked about how fun my job is becoming because I'm interacting with the front office more, who are really the salespeople, right? The really customer facing. So it does get. I think work gets a little bit more enjoyable the closer you get there. You get to see how the sausage is made, which is fun, because that's been a old complaint of mine about risk management is I don't get to see anything. Is this report that I've made and spent hours and hours of my life on making a difference? I have no idea, right? Is this VAR helping? Can somebody tell me?
well, I can answer that last question. VAR has never helped anybody. Okay. VAR is the only time VAR has helped anyone is someone who understands VAR and is using it to do very bad things under the
Yeah,
guise that it's been justified by VAR.
it's
That's
within VAR
the
limits.
only
Yeah,
time that VAR is any good is when it's used for evil risk purposes.
yeah, exactly. I know every VAR conversation should start. And now these are the 70 things that could go wrong with VAR. Oh man.
And the 80 that do go wrong with VAR that no one knew about.
Yeah, exactly. We've discovered a new way it goes wrong. Oh man. Yeah. Um, but yeah.
Actually, though, I think we've just hit upon something. And this is obviously totally unscripted, but risk management takes itself way, way, way too serious. On one hand, it is
Yeah.
serious, but also it's a freaking joke how much we don't know about risk management.
Yeah.
With every decimal point that you add to an analysis, you are basically adding an order magnitude of farce to the results.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in risk management, we gotta find the flip side of how serious people take risk management, and we've got to find that in some ways it's a farce.
Yeah.
It's the classic story of you make plans and God laughs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and we've got to see that God laughs part of risk management.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that all answers are equally wrong. I think we've kind of got to pretend we're being interviewed at Goldman Sachs a little bit and get the classic question, well, how many manhole covers are there in New York City? Well, it's more than one, but it's probably less than a billion, right? How do you stagger your way towards a reasonable answer? That's something I think risk managers should keep in their arsenal. How would you do it? How would you get started? Um, there is a reasonable answer. Um, so um, yeah, but I agree with you. We're so focused on the decimal points, we lose the big picture a lot of times. And yeah, it leads to us taking ourselves very seriously, being sticklers for the same precision from others, where we could be a facilitator, that helps to get things done, right? Not the Department of No, but the Department of Here's
How can
how
we
it
do
could
it
be
better?
done. Yeah, how can
Yeah.
we do it better? What makes sense? What's really at risk here? Because if we get what's going on and we're specialists at this and we've been doing this a long time, we have a good feel for the business and our front office is is really qualified. Well, let's give a bit of flexibility, right? And this is when we talked about static risk appetite last week, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago. You know, we should better articulate. Okay, we would pay more attention if this happens. We would jump in. We would start having more conversations with the front office. But otherwise, we give them a bit of leeway. We let them operate how they need to get the business in the door. I think we should, yeah, be more like
You,
that.
you know, I have a couple of other ideas. First off, um, and here I'm going to be pounding a theme that, I'm pounding in my upcoming book and whatnot. But a lot of risk management, in my opinion, doesn't pass the Turing test. In other words, you can't tell whether it's done by a human or a computer. And that I think is very, or can be very demoralizing. Having said that, I remember, I might have told this story before. I remember in university, someone came in, do you really want a job where someone slips a piece of paper under the door in the morning and you answer what's on the sheet of paper and slip it out at the end of the night? And I was like, yeah, sign me up. Sign me up. I want that job. I want that job. No contact with people, just,
Uh,
give me a question. I'll give you an answer. I think that I have two ideas to make risk management not only more fun, but also probably more efficient. First off, have organized skunk works for risk management. Skunk works is where you get to devote X% of your time isolated or in an isolated group if you want, that with no connections whatsoever. You're given some seed funding to go work on whatever you want. And that, of course, has been applied very successfully at many organizations and has led to a wide variety of things. In risk management, we don't get to do that a lot because so much of what we do is mandated by, basically regulation. And to
yeah,
be quite frank, Skunkworks has huge potential to drive to improve regulation I, I think that every risk manager with more than 3 weeks experience, forget 3 years, 3 weeks experience has ideas on how things could be done
yeah,
much better if they were let loose.
yeah,
Another idea is and this applies to financial institutions, give or uh, uh, risk units that are servicing capital markets trading desks, give them $5 million to manage on their own as a side project
mhm,
and see what happens to that. Then all of a sudden things might get much more interesting in the risk department because again it's kind of go back to seeing how the sausage is made, seeing how the sausage actually tastes at the end of the day,
yeah,
how it's seasoned.
yeah.
um
And do it early because I like your idea of, 3 weeks in. Um, People get accustomed to the culture. They start following the grain. And I've had one risk team in the past do this, and um, and none of the others. As soon as I entered the door, they were asking, "Well, what do you think of our documentation? What do you think of our policies? You've got fresh eyes for a couple of weeks, Carl. We're going to use it to our advantage." And I thought that was great because got me talking, right? Like got me into the flow of things because otherwise you're a little mouse in the corner, and you're just hearing these abbreviations that you have no idea what they mean. It really gets you into the culture of the team, but also they're hearing an outside perspective that they've forgotten, right? And that's very helpful. So I like that idea a lot, Rick. How do you keep things fresh in a risk team? That's really difficult, right? Because oftentimes people are like, "Well, your turnover is low. You must be a great team." Well, there's downsides to that too, right? But a turnover is not a bad thing. Um, yeah, good ones.
I think we
Uh,
need a risk comic as well.
a
I mean,
comic. Ah,
yeah, like there's lots of cartoonists on,
a Dilbert.
the interweb that, have, basically do a spinoff of Dilbert for
Yeah,
consultants and for marketers. Someone's got to become a cartoonist for risk managers. So if
yeah,
there's a budding cartoonist out there, we need you to post some cartoons
I
of
know.
risk
I
managers.
We need some iconography, Rick. I wanted to bring this up, but I wasn't sure how to frame it. When
I
we get
can't
on
say
the
it, so I'm glad you brought it up.
it might be the wrong word. Hang on, let me explain first. Whenever we get on the NS trains, that's the national train company here in the Netherlands. It's the famous blue and yellow trains that take you everywhere. Um, if my son is being particularly cute that day, the conductor will come by, check our tickets, and then he'll give us a little sticker, a little page of stickers, with lights and trains and all platforms and everything. And of course, the first thing he does is stick them all over the windows, and they're gonna have to clean them up later. But my point is, if you're a conductor, you take
Vandal.
pride in, yeah, I know. You take pride in your job, you enjoy what you do, and these are the things you work with every day. These are the things people see that you do with your time. Platforms. The platforms are clean. The trains are beautiful. They're washed. What do we point to when I say I'm a risk manager? What do we evoke in people's minds when we say that? Is it a bell curve? I hope not. Um, but what is it we
Well, part of the fundamental problem of how risk is framed is, and again, this is why I teach my risk maps totally different. Risk maps or heat maps, whatever you want to call them, it's all focused on bad risk. And no one comes
yeah,
back to the good risk. How can we do things better? How can we increase the probability and magnitude of good things happening?
yeah,
And so it's kind of natural. You know, no one cheers when the institution stays in business, but everyone points to risk when it goes bad.
yeah,
Now, I've experienced in hockey as a goaltender, okay? And as one famous goalie says, every time you make a mistake, assuming that you're playing a away game, you make 20,000 people very happy. And, lights go off and, sirens go off and people
yeah,
cheer. And then, of course, at home, they boo.
yeah,
Okay. Um, and we kind of need away games in risk where things are topsy turvy. And when, it's very hard because risk as a field is asymmetric and it should be symmetric. We should be focusing
yeah,
on good risk as much as on bad risk. And until we do that, um, these problems are going to exist. And as long as, I'll leave it as a rhetorical question, but what percentage of your team's work is business related versus regulatory related? Okay.
yeah,
And it should be 90-10, 90% business related, 10% regulatory. I
yeah,
suspect it's the inverse of that or near the inverse of that.
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah. So yeah, basically, I'll sum it up in we should stop being the Oliver Twist, the forgotten stepchild in a Victorian novel. That's only there to hit over the head when things go bad. And we should be helping make things happen. We should be helping the business go forward.
should be more like
Uh,
Voodoo Rick.
Voodoo
More
Rick,
like Voodoo
he's our
Rick.
icon.
Made of felt and you can stick lots of pins in it.
Careful, you give yourself a stomach ache, Rick.
Oh,
Uh, all right. Well, Rick, I'll be very excited to report back in the next 2 weeks or so because we're going to start getting in student essays to the intelligent risk student essay competition. Hopefully, some of your students thought about entering, did enter, will enter. And actually, we're going to talk about regulation in the essay. That's what they're writing about. So I'm looking forward to a lot of new ideas there. And on that note,
Oh, I'm sorry. You still there?
I know. I hope they will make my job as an editor fun. We'll see. But until next time,
Have a great
cheers.
week, everyone.